Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Dream, and you are here for another exciting podcast under the banner of the DMT Chronicles, which is under the umbrella of Psychedelics is Medicine, which is under the umbrella of the It's All Good show. I'm super excited to have today's guest. His name is Chris Velrath. He and I met back in 2013 as part of the Free Your Mind 2 conference in Philadelphia. And recently I put out a call for looking for some more people to interview on our Facebook group, the DMT Chronicles. And Chris stepped up and said that he has an interesting story and experiences to share that falls into the DMT realm as ayahuasca does. And so, Chris, give us a little bit of your background. Obviously, you're involved in documentaries, or you were at that time. And so give us a little bit of your background and then tell us share with us how this story unfolded for you.
Yeah, well, thanks for the introduction. I'm personally have been involved in the arts for a very long time, and that has translated into a professional career in the creative fields, design, branding, film work, photography, and animation. And that's what I do on a regular from project to project. I have my own business. As far as I've always had an interest in ayahuasca, I believe, probably since around the first time that we met. Um, I think if you remember, there was a show way back. I don't know if it's still in existence, but I was kind of intrigued. It was called Truth Frequency with Chris and Sherry Geo, and I believe there were some pretty interesting interviews on what was Red Ice Radio back in the day, and that involved some discussion on this topic. And yeah, so I was familiar with it, but it just so happened that I was working in the healing community among some friends of mine, doing some work to promote their retreats, to promote their business and what they do. And one of the guys happened to own some land in Peru, and he was interested in getting some documentary footage down there in Peru of some land that he owned, and his work with the local tribe, the Shipibo people, outside of Pucallpa, Peru, in the Amazon jungle. And we talked for a while, and eventually it kind of came out to a pretty solid project to ascertain this footage and go ahead and get it. We go in with a plan and do some interviews and get some B-roll. And so I ended up spending a month in Peru.
Must have been fascinating. So give us an idea of how it unfolded and the what you saw, and if you partaked in the ceremonies yourself, or you were just there documenting it. Super excited to hear about all this.
Sure, yeah. So I had no intention really. I knew it was maybe in the realm of possibilities, but I had no intention to go there specifically for an ayahuasca retreat or ceremony. I had, had great respect for psychedelics in general, having past experience and used them quite recklessly in my youth. I realized the power of them, and I was apprehensive because I was just I had quit, had come off alcohol for about 20 long years, and just kind of wondering if that was the right thing to embark in so soon after, putting a cork into that chapter in my life. And so I knew I wanted to go down. It was the jungle. It was going to be a challenge to film out there. We were going to an awesome retreat, one of the most authentic experiences I figured one could have. Um, there's a lot of retreats out there that are built up and have all your creature comforts and air conditioning and that, and I'm sure it's nice. Not saying one, there's certain experiences that are right for different people. This was kind of thatched roof, um, you know, um, mud pathways, animals, chickens all over the place. And the local tribe was right there with us. And so I found myself right in the midst of these people who've been working with this particular plant medicine since before recorded history, thousands and thousands of years. And they're apparently some of the most artistic and creative people, very peaceful people um, in the Amazon Delta in Peru. And again, that's the Shipibo tribe. And so, yeah, I we got tickets, and I don't know, after a very kind of awkward flight with some weird connections, we eventually got there into the jungle. This is the closest city you could only get to by boat. It's hanging on by a thread. It looks like a shanty town. Those people are survivors, though. They make it work out there, and that in itself is quite impressive. Um, and So, just trying to paint a picture as to how far away and distant we were from civilization and how kind of embedded into the culture I had the opportunity to find myself in. We went there. The the name of the retreat, by the way, is called Tierra Vida Benpote. And that's the spot right on Pucallpa. And I had met I believe the land is kind of jointly owned by two friends of mine at this point, but one of the guy lives down there for a good portion of the year, and he runs these retreats. And so I got there, maybe about 5 days into filming, getting interviews, and we were interviewing everyone. There was a dignitary to the UN of the Shipibo people. She came down, and we got her words, and we had some translation. Everybody spoke Spanish there, and we interviewed her. We interviewed a political refugee with a crosshair on his head. Lima's one heck of a town, apparently not too different from DC here in the States. Plenty of machinations and mischief going on. And there was a couple of people. We had artists, they're local artists, the farmers, and of course Adam, who runs the spot. He ended with him and his wife and his family. So, it's going through this process. This is all very standard stuff for documentary filmmaking, regardless of the scenario, wherever you find yourself in. However, there was, this question that kind of kept coming up in my mind, and I thought, this might be a once in a lifetime opportunity. I'm here for a month. I think it was just a few days in, I asked my producer, who I was there, who hired me, with like, would it be appropriate for you and for the project? Would you feel comfortable? Because he was doing it. If I joined you guys. And he said, "Oh yeah, man, yeah." So I found myself filming in running all over the jungle with a camera in my hand and up and down the river, avoiding pirates and that sort of thing, and pailing out the boat to at night, coming to this Maloka in the middle of the jungle, hearing the sounds, being completely enveloped in this environment, and embarking on some plant medicine journeys of my own. That's kind of how things started to formulate, and we did quite a few ceremonies.
Well, give us an idea, Chris. I went down to Peru, to the jungle, in 1994 to do my first ayahuasca ceremonies, and this was before the ayahuasca retreats got bougie and and all this. It was rustic, doesn't even begin to cover, like rustic would have been an upgrade from what I experienced, but mosquito netting in one huge room with everyone, and all of this, really beautiful. We were an hour and a half canoe ride from Iquitos, and then an hour or so hike into the jungle. So it was it was really something. I had traveled all over the world by that time, by 1994, but being that thick in the jungle and everything really hit me, just the growth or overgrowth of everything, and the sounds and the feeling, and really feeling so far away from everything. How was it for you? And had you done international work and everything by that point? And how did it compare to, like what you were used to doing?
Yeah, sure. It sounds like you and I had similar experiences, and all for the better, in my opinion. I was not interested and never am when I travel internationally or anywhere for that matter. Any sort of guided or hand holding. I've always learned things the hard way, and I continue to plan to do so. Um, Regardless, yeah. I as soon as there was some apprehension with getting the flights and just the kind of the whole dodginess of getting there. I realized a lot of that stuff was out of my control anyway, and I'll just hop on here and see where this plane takes me, right? I'll wind up somewhere. I've had a fair amount of experience in tough situations or, kind of dangerous spots. So I was just gonna roll with the punches. And it didn't turn out to be anything like there weren't really any hazards along those signs along those ways. I guess I finally relaxed once we pulled ashore after I mean, I was smiling the whole time we took the boat on, because I just love being on rivers. I love boats. And I had my Pelican case with me with all of my gear in it and all of that. And I knew I was embarking into the unknown, and that excited me a lot. And we kind of came from this shanty town with all the rickshaw, not tuk-tuks, right? The little
Right, right.
three-wheeled motorized things. It's just complete chaos. And somehow, like I said, those people make it work for them. I was already kind of in a high energy state, and just pulling to shore and like hearing nothing but birds, um, and all sorts of other unidentified animal creatures just hooting and hollering. The green leaves, the humidity. I have my grandmother. I used to spend some summers with her down in the Virginia swamps, where she had a beautiful property. So I was no stranger to humidity, but I don't like it. That's not what I'm built for. But I can recognize it, and I can survive in it. And it was thick, man. Thicker than I've ever. And we came in February, which is apparently the cool year, or the coolest time of year. Man, I was just sweat for it. And again, another lesson in acceptance, right? Um, so yeah, I just grinning ear from ear, like wow, this I'm really here. This is so out of the ordinary for not necessarily outside of my comfort level, because like I said, I've been around and had some experiences, but it was it was magical. It was just, you could feel the energy of the jungle instantly, just teeming with life. Besides the auditorial bombardment, just the paths, the trees, and friendly faces. We were greeted by an excellent guy. I can't speak highly enough of Adam, our host there, and who we were also interviewing. And he was I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, my connection to the Western world, as it were. Um, I kind of he was a guide. He has professional medical training. Kind of a dude who's on top of things. I'm really good. It just seemed like he was the type of guy, if anything went sideways, you could buddy up with him, and nothing like that happened. But Peru was turbulent at that point in time, politically speaking. I think there were some rebellions, and might have ran into that if we had drove there from Lima. Some road blockades, who knows? But we flew right over it, and landed in the Pucallpa airport. And hope that answered your question. How
Yeah,
how did it
definitely.
feel to get there? It was
Yeah.
awesome, man. It was a sensory overload in the best way possible, before even considering any sort of plant medicine.
Yeah, I mean the sense of adventure that builds up, once you get out of like the Lima airport, and for you going to where you went, for me going to Iquitos, which was even a bigger city than you were in. But then once you leave and you're leaving the, village or city, so to speak, behind, and going, out into that wide expanse, and just everything starts to shift. Now, you said you did the first 5 days, you did the buildup of interviews and this and that, kind of laying the groundwork for everything. Thinking back on it now, tell me again, what year was this?
This was 2023.
Okay. Oh, excellent. So, what were your first kind of thoughts or perceptions that were coming through in those? You obviously got to speak with some amazing people, and so what was it like for you?
I'm sorry, there's a bit of a glitch in the system. What was my first thought with what again?
You know what? Hold on. I think I got an issue.
Just a connection thing. You're coming through clear
Do
now.
I sound all right? So the question for me was, as you're doing the groundwork of those first 5 days, and you're doing these interviews that are giving you the foundation, I would think, for what's going to be built on. What were your perceptions at that point? You talked to what sounds like some pretty amazing people.
Um, Perceptions of just kind of the situation I found myself in, or the spot, or
I
like
mean,
going into a
the
plant
spot
ceremonies.
and what was kind of going on with the people. What were they
Mhm.
sharing with you? What was
Sure.
important for
Yeah.
them to have you understand? And Adam obviously orchestrated all this before you go into, like, here's the ceremony, here's the plant medicine, and then what we'll get to as your own experience.
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. These people were working, these people were all working for a living, going about their way in the tiny little village right next to the retreat. And it was really a farm. So we're dealing with farmers and people that are, you know, running around all day with machetes in their hands and like, gathering fruit and or, setting out cacao, um, or, maybe harvesting ayahuasca because they've made it there, right there on the spot. And they were going into town, out of town, Pucallpa, because that's where you get a lot of supplies. There's a diesel generator that ran maybe couple hours a day, like 2 hours a day. That's it. Then it was shut off because, diesel's expensive. Um, and you know, I've done a lot of that kind of work myself, not necessarily in the jungle, but I'm a bit of a factotum. I found myself amongst all kinds of professionals, and I was impressed. These people were working all day, and they loved the jungle, man. They absolutely that was their home, and there was no mistaking it, and they were very loyal to it and all of the bounty that it had to offer. We were very fortunate enough to work with and interview a particularly unique guy. Trying to think of his name, it'll probably come to me. But he was the local medicine man for the um, the mixed tribe, the tribe of the local Shipibos who integrated with the Spanish some, right? So there's a little bit of a class division there, but he was a medicine man, and he felt very close to his Shipibo roots. And we were walking around the jungle with this guy who was pointing out this plant, that plant, this. He'd take his machete and smack the trunk of a tree, and it would start to ooze, some white pus. And he said, "This stuff is good for, a head cold, or maybe night night terrors, or or like, yeah, there was something uh for everything right there, and he knew every single bit, every plant from top to bottom of the canopy. And he said, "This is my pharmacy. I don't need to go take pills or that sort of thing." He says, "It's all right here." And he had some other amazing stories. His father was a shaman, and he was a shaman despite his mixed heritage. Um, and I don't think he would ever admit it, but he knew all the tricks of the trade, and whether it was in title or not, he was an absolute expert in his field. So, I was just kind of meeting fascinating folks, being introduced by fascinating folks like that with my producer, Dylan, who's also a friend with Adam. And between the three of us, we were just kind of going around locally. We did go back into the main city with the airport, Pucallpa, the shanty town. Most of our work was right there, and people would actually come to us by boats. Like I said, artists, dignitaries, political dignitaries, for the Shipibo people, people with political refugees, people with all kinds of stories. And if there was one kind of underlying theme, it was their loyalty to their home, not even so much their people, right? They were not a exclusively minded folk, if you will. They were
Mhm.
very open-minded. Um, Adam himself is a guy of Dutch ancestry, I believe, and he married right into the family, and they welcomed him as one of their own. So, they're a very open-minded people and they love sharing. But I think there's something real, and this is another underlying theme that I came across, is that the jungle is very much in danger from many different aspects and from many different sides. A lot of that seems, from me reading between the lines. I've done a fair amount of investigative journalism myself. I used to work in that in the creative fields, but also that. But I could sense that there's a lot of friction coming from Lima and I guess you could say religious institutions, that want to control the people um, in stifling traditions and also, kind of attempting to put a stranglehold over the jungle and, to some success. But I mean, it's weird. It seems like the jungle kind of fights back in its own way without the people even having to, do with this. But that was it, man. They loved they loved their home. They loved the jungle, and they realized how important it was and how filled with magic and wonder it was. They did not take it for granted.
I love that. Now, let me ask, I feel like I should have asked this before. What was the stated intention of you and Dylan, the producer, and everyone going out there?
Hmm.
What did you think you were to document? Was it specific to the plant medicine ceremony, or was it just to document the area, the people, and the plant medicine? Like, what did you think you were walking into?
Sure. Hilbert is the name of the Mestiza gentleman who was a shaman. Hilbert, spelled like Gilbert. Hilbert, pronounced like Gilbert. Um, so um, Dylan, this was really his brainchild, and again, he met me at some other things. Some guys practicing some Eastern forms of body arts and that sort of energetic cultivation. Um, it was his dream to kind of tell the story of all these. He really likes people, and he enjoys their stories, and feels that maybe it would do there would be an audience, and it would do the public good to hear from some of these amazing, unique characters that are just kind of nobody's heard of, or no, they're tucked away, yet they do so much for these communities. And they might not have the technology or the means to get their stories out there, like big cameras and lenses and the chops to make high-end productions. But these stories are deserving of that in Dylan's mind. So that's what we came down there. We came down there to film the material and then kind of figure out a plan afterward, which we've kind of taken bite-sized chunks off of, but which we're actually still in the process of figuring out. But we wanted to capture it, before it's too late. because there does seem to be this sort of impending. Seems like there's like, a ticking clock on a lot of this stuff when it comes to the jungle. Like some of the old ways are getting lost, and that's not unique to Peru or anywhere else, but anywhere where you've got indigenous cultures and old traditions. Historically, you've seen centers of power work and do their damnedest to assimilate, the sacred ways of people, and the traditions that are very important to them, and either usurp those powers for their own and for the sense of greed, or maybe just consolidation. That again, that was an underlying theme, and I think Dylan sensed this. I don't believe he's had quite the background and research that I have in terms of like geopolitics and trying to unravel the structure of the world and why things are the way they are, and looking at the spider web. But he knew regardless, and so he wanted to capture this footage, and that's what we did. We mic'd these guys up and sat them in front of the camera for hours, and just wanted to, very much like you and I are doing. It was a very conversational sort of thing, perhaps sometimes with a translator or not, but I just wanted to get these stories and get enough B-roll so that, when it's time to go, when it's time to pull the trigger, that, we'll have all kinds of material in the bag to pull out and use.
So you kind of gave us a little bit of an idea of the first 5 days. Were you literally down there for a month?
Yeah, yeah. And
Okay.
again, the 5 days was, maybe it was three, maybe it was two. It felt like five. The time dilated a little bit down there, even without any assistance.
Right. So give us an idea of how the rest of your experience moved forward.
Sure. Um, so one by one, guests started to arrive to the farm. Uh, these were retreat attendees, and there weren't many. It was a small group. There was one Russian gymnast who came. Um, and she was an expat from Bali. And there was another Lebanese gentleman, businessman, who was came in from Dubai, I believe. And Dylan was there with a friend of his, and it was Adam. So it's a very small crew. But that was pretty much it. And those were the people around me that spoke English, and they were there for the retreat. And um, it was interesting to meet and befriend those guys. But I realized there was a lot of people, and the jungle kind of moves at its own pace, and so who we're supposed to interview will get there when they get there. And it wasn't even a hurry up and wait kind of thing. It was just like, it'll happen when it happens, and then I'll just mosey over to my gear and slowly set up. That's just kind of the speed things move at around there. It's hot, man, and it slows everything down. Um, but so it was at that point, to kind of get back to the topic, that I asked my producer if it would be appropriate, and he assured me that, and encouraged me to do it. And I asked Adam, the guide down there, what he thought about it, if he knew anything about, like, problem drinkers and how it might react with them, or his experience with folks like that, who don't drink like normal people. And he was pretty reassuring himself. And I had done a little bit of reading, but I just wanted to hear from these guys too. And apprehensively, I started. I agreed, and I said, not agreed, but I said, let's do this. I'm ready. It's now or never. And so I kind of, um, I wouldn't say I was really afraid, but I knew I had a little bit of prep work to do in order to get into the right frame of mind. Um, I wasn't interested in, psychedelic tourism or looking to get to have a trip. I wanted to respect the ways of these people, And if they called it plant medicine, that's the way I need to think of it. Not like something recreational like I would have done very carelessly back in my youth, for a quick buzz or an experience or bragging rights or anything like that, you know. So I started a regiment of on my off time of meditation and prayer. Really, really, you know, as deep as I could go, asking for guidance and direction. So I knew I was about to embark on an adventure. You know, I had no qualms about that, and or no delusion that, you know, I was entering somewhat foreign territory. Um, because again, like I've done all the drugs. I've been out on the street and done all kinds of wild things in my life and gotten into crazy trouble. And you know, I think that took some of the edge off, or some in terms of fear. But
Right.
you know, I still didn't want to look at any of this lightly or casually. Uh, and furthermore, I saw it as a potentially transformative tool, um, that could assist me in a long overdue healing process that I was currently undergoing. And, you know, again, that's where the plant medicine aspect comes in. I had known enough that, and I had been doing shadow work, right? Um, both, you know, in education, educating myself and also working with others, to, you know, heal from a lot of trauma that I had been through. Some of it, much of it, self-imposed. But you know, that's kind of a common story when you're dealing with people that had addiction issues. And so I realized that, you know, going into this ceremony, that I'm probably going to get more out of this if, you know, if I go in with a mind with an extremely humble mindset, and you know, again, ask for guidance, and prayer, from sources beyond me, uh, and you know, kind of leave my ego at the door, and enter through as much of, you know, a willing blank slate as I possibly could be, but with some spiritual guard up, because you know, man, I also felt personally that it's a bit like a Ouija board in some senses, where, you know, you could be having fun with friends and going with the best intentions, but if you don't know what you're doing, it's like calling up a random number on a payphone. You never know who's going to be on the other end, right?
So you're obviously in the perfect setting. And then, you know, everyone says, we always say about going into the psychedelic experience, it's all about set and setting. So the setting is most certainly there. And then from what you're saying, the mindset and everything else, you had done that inner work and sort of preparation for it. Now, were you in one of the first rounds of doing the medicines, or did you get to watch other people do it first? What was the process now that we enter this phase of the actual
Mhm.
plant medicine?
So they had shamans lined up to come uh, from, I'm not sure where they lived, but somewhere along the river, as everyone does around there. These were professional shamans, but I don't know knew how to run a ceremony as well. And so the first handshake with the plant medicine, accompanied by the Nuya Rao, was done in a non-ceremonial format at the Maloka. And I mean, it was a ceremony, but it just, you know, there was not, it was perhaps not as regimented. It was kind of low key, and you know, a gradual ride into it.
Was there a
And
shaman there for that?
there was not,
Okay, of
and not by title. As I mentioned, Adam could, you know, he
course.
again would not take on that title until it was formally uh, put upon him. But he knew what he was doing. He very much knew what he was doing, and he works with shamans constantly on a nearly daily basis. So I guess you could say the shaman's apprentice
Hmm.
um, introduced us. And I think there was only maybe three of us there in the Maloka. Big round Maloka, and they have since built a new one. Good for them. But I didn't see much wrong with the first one. Um, anyway, uh, yeah, so it was like you mentioned. I couldn't have asked for a better setting, just away from absolutely everything. And I'm there more or less alone with myself. And of course, there's the others there, and the idea is to have somewhat of a healing family, but these are very personal journeys, right? That you
Right.
go through. And so, I was really able to tap into that. And the my first experience, in a non-ceremonial um, format was um, I can't say it was really surprising because again, I have had experience with psychedelics, but it was unlike anything I've ever experienced. It was absolutely new and fresh and more vivid and powerful than all the other drugs. And again, I was not looking for a buzz there. That would have been very counterproductive to my agenda. Um, I got visions instantly, almost. You know, they came for me very
How
strong.
much of the medicine did you take? Because I know they give it in like a small cup. Did you do one, two, more?
Um, so uh, he had a tall glass, and they would fill it to certain amounts for different people upon, requests, and also at the suggestion of the shamans. I took the same amount that everybody else did. I told them, look, I mean, this isn't really my first rodeo, but I'm new to ayahuasca. Um, and so, he poured it out accordingly. I wasn't like, really keeping count, like how many milligrams you got in there for
Right.
me. Let's bump those numbers up a little bit, buddy. No, I just kind of took what was there.
How did
We
it
did the new,
taste?
uh, like fermented raisins. I don't know. Little fruity. My
Mm.
producer, who I love down, who he loved the taste of it. He says it's delicious. Um, I have a different palate apparently. Uh, I didn't let it ruin the experience or anything. It's like, oh wow, well, that's different. That's pretty intense.
Right.
I don't know if acidic is really the right word. It tasted like it was gooey and green, I believe, and it was hard for me to tell the color, but before we drank the ayahuasca, we would take the Nuya Rao and let that sit in for about a half an hour to chant. And
Now,
this was kind of a common thing.
you talked to me about this off camera,
Mhm.
so tell us a little bit about this tree
Sure.
and what form this medicine takes.
Yeah. So I'll do my best to recount these interviews, but we have the whole story. The Shipibo tribe, central to their legends and tradition, is what is called a Nuya Rao tree. And this is a tree that is um, it is in existence and has been in existence, and it has bioluminescent leaves that glow at night, and they fall, and we almost went to see it this time around. But anyway, this tree is central to their legend, and it has to do with the uplifting of their tribe, for lack of a better term, the enlightenment of their tribe and the elders, and it bestows wisdom and is central to the advancement of their people and the knowledge that they not necessarily guard, because like I said earlier, they're very open people. They want to share, and they realize they've got something special. But it's the New Ural tree in particular is central to this knowledge. It, I wouldn't really say you could draw a parallel to, maybe in some ways, like to maybe Yggdrasil from Nordic tradition. The tree of life. It's that venerated, and that much of an important symbol to them. What makes this tree interesting is that it apparently phases in and out of reality, meaning you can go back to where you thought it was and it won't be there anymore, with precise directions. And sometimes it'll go missing for years and it'll only appear when it needs to, or, you can't call it, you can't force it. The Nuya Rao tree will be there. And interestingly enough, the only way to locate it is through shamanic technique during ceremony. So we're talking things like second sight, and geolocating through second sight, basically, for um, and it had been gone for, I don't know, maybe a good 40 to 80 years. I don't remember the exact number, but it had been gone for decades, and it only recently reappeared again. And they uh, they found it, and the shamans confirmed it. Multiple shamans confirmed that that is it. That is the Nuya Rao tree. And don't ask me how they quantify whether that is the one or not. But again, it's central. So essence of this tree, I don't know whether it was taken from the leaves or from the bark. I believe it might have been from the bark, but the essence of this tree is somehow diluted or diffused into a drink, a potion, if you will. Um, and you can take from the tree. It's not like there's a cordon that they set up and everybody stand back and don't touch it. The tree is there to provide gifts. So I even have, see if I could find it real quick. I even have a pipe carved from the Nuya Rao tree, um, that I smoke tobacco from, and I have this pendant from it, and it's there to give, and people take this Nuya Rao potion prior, about a half an hour, and for me that had a very kind of centering, grounding, calming effect. It now that on the other hand tasted really nice. That did appeal to my particular tastes. It was kind of piney, I guess you could say, similar to like kind of a pine tree. It had like a little bit of a crisp floral edge to it, yet gentle and kind of soothing. It certainly didn't, you know, um, blow your hair back like, at least for me, when I would drink the ayahuasca, it was that was quite a shock to my personal palate. The Nuya Rao was a lot gentler, and that is integral and a preferred way. If the tree's around, that's how you do the ceremony. You add that to it. Um, so that, and I would also say that kind of it had a way of sort of setting the stage and working very much with the plant medicine, and carried according to the shamans and the shaman's apprentice. Um, it worked in tandem with the medicine, and had a spirit of its own, very powerful spirit, but a little bit of a gentle guiding hand, if you will, to get you to where you need to be. Um, Not saying that, you know, a tough time on psychedelics is not where you need to be at any given time, but it had a, let's say, a focusing effect would be the best way for me to describe it.
All right, so you do this a half an hour before the ayahuasca, then you drink your standard size tall glass of as you're drinking from a glass, okay, of ayahuasca, and then take us into it. Oh, and
Sure.
the what do you call it? The malacca,
The Maloka is a circular
maloka,
house where the ceremonies are performed. Um,
open air.
uh, Screened in. The mosquitoes were an issue.
Oh yeah.
And they thought they would find a way in. So, but regardless, it was a wooden structure, completely circular, and enough room to maybe accommodate 50 beds. It was
Oh
for a
wow.
jungle building, it was impressive. And there was only a couple of us in there, so it was a big, wide open space with a tall thatched roof, right? And it would keep the rain out and some mosquitoes and other critters. out. Although there was a monkey on the roof, we did see, or was it a cat? It's a cat. Yeah, the cats used to like to crawl around on the roof, the rafters, but they're good spiritual guardians anyway, so they were welcome in my book. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, it was a great setting, you know. There was mats that we laid them on our back, and you know, there was no standard dosage or glass size. So, you know, however much you want. Now, obviously, if you know you were hypothetically, if somebody was having trouble, you know, or really dealing with some things, or letting letting out what needed to come out, and you know, they're not necessarily cut off, but the shaman makes a determination at that point. A good shaman would say, all right, well, let's let them deal with where they're at. You know, we don't need to keep pouring this stuff down their throat. So you know, there was some discernment, but you could ask for more if you wanted some. The first night I just kind of went with the flow and let it do its thing. And yeah, you know, I was transported to you know, a I guess you could say a parallel reality that runs. Um, you know, the veil was lifted, so to speak, to one dimension. And you know, that was not all, but you know, I got a glimpse. I was able to peek behind the curtain a little bit, right? And you know, the visions were intense. And when I say it intense, I don't mean in a disturbing way, but they were vivid, they were colorful, and I could feel them, right? But I always had a sense of self the entire time. And you know, that was again one of my main fears going in, because I would lose myself on distilled spirits like alcohol. And that was a big problem for me. And so, you know, I came in with that fear, but I always had complete control. Now, I didn't necessarily have, um, I wasn't necessarily the master of the projector in the screening room. At least I didn't feel. It wasn't, there was some lucidity there though, right? So, I mean, I could navigate. Um, Now, the way these ceremonies worked and the way the shamans worked, that I was fortunate enough to participate with, uh, they would incrementally and time out each visit um, with increased dosages of the medicine each time. And again, you know, if you requested more, they would make a determination from there. Uh, but before any of that, you know, this was just the first time with Adam and without the shaman. So I guess we could talk about the experience with the shamans, which is a little bit different. Um, but you know,
How many experiences did you have while you were down there of the ayahuasca?
um, I think seven
Oh, wow. Okay.
throughout the month, 6 or 7. Um, and it was the second time that the shamans came, and they wanted to get to know me, and in terms of like how they could help, and you know, be of assistance, because they were there as healers. They were not there to facilitate somebody's trip, right?
Right.
Um, So you know, I spilled the beans to them as best as I could. There was a bit of a language barrier. They spoke Spanish, and the elder shaman, she forget her name, sweet old lady. I don't even believe she spoke Spanish. I believe she spoke Shipibo. And Adam, of course, does speak Spanish and Shipibo. Two very different languages. Obviously, one is native. Um, And you know, I spilled the beans and did my best to kind of simplify my history of you know, recklessness, but also, you know, strength and hope, and kind of where I'm at now. And but I told her about my history and had to kind of clarify a couple things just through the language barrier, but they got kind of as much as one could within a brief conversation, and with a language barrier, that who I am and what I came there for, because that was another important aspect of their series of quick questions was, what do you want out of this? And then, upon answering that, then they would help to facilitate. And so they came for the second experience and were present, the same shamans, um, every subsequent experience and ceremonies afterward.
What was the largest number of people that you had the experience with?
Six.
Okay. So
Yeah.
all really intimate.
Yeah, spread out in this large surface area. Now, if you include the shamans, eight, it was a mother and son, and
Oh,
they
wow.
were great. Um, and they were, full blood Shipibo, and had a lineage of shamanism stretching back for thousands of years, I'm assuming. Um, at least within their tribe. So and they learned well, they were called maestros. So let's get the terminology correct. They refer to themselves as maestros,
Okay.
um, or was it meisters? I think it was maestros. And but I mean, they were shamans in plant medicine. I'm just using that term loosely, but the maestros came from a lineage, and they worked in tandem, the mother and son, and they would sing, and they would guide, and the language barrier didn't mean a whole lot, um, when during ceremony.
Now, it's not uncommon in an ayahuasca experience to get sick. Did you experience that?
Um, Not really to my stomach. Like I didn't feel badly ill or anything like that. So I didn't upchuck, but I had some uh trying to think how to say this nicely. Yeah, I was on the pot for a little while with
Oh, the other end.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, for each ceremony. That was something I dealt with. It's kind of frustrating because I would have loved to just kind of sat there the whole time, and I guess you could say it was a little bit distracting, but I was never in any pain or discomfort, and I really experienced what I needed to experience aside from that. So I wouldn't say it was a major detracting force or something, but some people get very ill apparently and upchuck, throw up.
Yeah.
That was not my experience. I didn't, not once.
In our
We did do
experience, they,
some.
they gave us these plastic bowls, and they called them
Hmm.
the televisor, which is television in Spanish, because a lot of people throw up in their bowl and then see their visions in their vomit.
Hmm.
It's a thing.
Yeah, yeah. No, we got the same plastic bowl. I didn't get that lore behind it though. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that was our story that we had.
Hmm.
All right, so seven experiences. Any highlights you want to share, and then I want you to go into what the medicine gave you, what was your takeaway, and then the bigger takeaway from the whole experience with the people, the area, the Shipibo, the whole thing.
Hmm. Yeah. So I mean, as far as highlights, I was gifted with visions nearly every time, except I think maybe once when I was distracted. Um, Apparently, with if you have a fuzzy mind or a lot going on, uh, it's a little bit harder to get the most or make the most out of the experiences. Um, like I said, I had done a lot of work, a lot of prayer, meditation prior to each ceremony, and with the hopes of finding the proper direction in that ceremony. Um, so the visuals for me, there almost seem to be, you know, almost different themed nights where, I would see what I needed to see on any given night, like, uh, without getting into each specific vision, I saw a gallery of faces and personality archetypes, much like one would see, as represented by the play masks of like one laughing and one crying. And that was pretty interesting. I believe it was the second night. It was like kind of like uh, a death metal album cover. I don't know if you're familiar with how that looks, but like I do
Yes.
believe, I was visited by some spirits, right? And there was decay and entropy, and it was heavy stuff. I mean, jokes on them. I'm kind of well versed in that and have done my fair share of listening to that sort of thing and always been interested in the darker side of things. So it wasn't a shock to me. I was like, oh, okay, well, this is really interesting. It was kind of like I was riding with them for a little while in the netherworld, if that makes sense. It was a longer ride and not exactly sure what messages were exactly broadcasted during that ride again, where there's kind of different spirits. And but it definitely seemed like a trip to the land of the dead, so to speak. Very and I don't know, very parallel as to described in mythological legends and Greek mythology. I felt like I crossed the river Styx briefly. Um, or yeah, so I mean that was really cool. Some very evocative symbols, such as a gleaming emerald, green emerald in a egg that was a stone egg that was cracked open to reveal a beautiful gleaming green emerald. So, each time there was a download for me, at least visually speaking, and something to unpack, which, took years to do for me. Just kind of analyzing the symbolism and everything. As I mentioned earlier, each time the ceremony, the dosage would increase. I mean, unless you specifically say, hey, last night was a little bit too heavy. Um, let's tone it down a little bit. I didn't. I kind of have a bit of an adventurous spirit. I mean, as does everybody who finds themselves in these positions. But I'm in no ways unique from that, but the idea of just kind of incrementally ramping up and the medicine, and along with the Nuya Rao, um, from what the shamans described, is accumulative when you have ceremonies that close back to back, kind of every few days or every other day. Um, it builds, and by the end, um, I told him to, really give me the works. This is my last night here. Let's. I've been loving it. I feel comfortable, or so I thought. And but let's see what this stuff is really all about. And they did. They went ahead and gave me a very high dosage the last day, and kind of went in with this sense of gratitude. And before I talk about that, I need to preface it with some of the things that were gifted, or some of the visions that I saw commonly running. And this was the first night I saw a glowing yellow eye, a cat feline type eye, looking at me, an eye in the darkness, shrouded in kind of dark clouds, revealing its presence to me as an entity of hyper intelligence, just like way beyond. It knew exactly who I am, kind of almost like in a form of, for lack of a better describe, where I'm destined to go. Um, the past, the present, the future. It just, immense. intelligence and insight. And so, this was revealed to me on my first. So that was kind of part of the handshake. It's like, okay, so I know who I'm dealing with. I realize that this is Pat. I'm you know seeing through beyond into the spiritual realm, and there are indeed spirits here, and they're taking interest in us, right? Um, so also the spirit of the river revealed itself to me as well. So I'm kind of dealing with this stuff. So like along with the land of the dead, I'm also, and these are distinct, right? Like these are not like you can tell one from the other. It's not like just a bunch of visuals like, oh, that eye looks so cool out there, man. That's really, it's like, no, it's more than, a visual thing. You can feel the
Right.
energy and presence. And so just wanted to preface my last one with that, but my last experience, but this was really the whopper for me. I entered a realm very much like a something that oh, what's his name? He did the a lot of Tool videos and
Alex
famous
Gray.
artists. Thank you. It's like something Alex Gray could barely touch on. It was it's probably the closest visual parallel. So I was in this realm of um, and of course there was this journey to the place, and that was part of interesting as the medicine was starting to take effect, and so it'd be like kind of a long turn tunnel toward a white door. But found myself within a realm, and it was really hard to see anywhere else outside of that realm. And it was rife with arcades and pillars and intelligent structure, and everything was popping and colorful. And um, it was certainly a space, a dimension that I found myself in. And beyond that realm, I received some glimpses as the horizon would sort of pulsate and reveal further realms beyond that. That this particular time I did not journey to, but they were revealed to me that they exist. And I was approached by entities from what I could best describe as I don't think robotic would be we've heard of the machine elves, right? Can't really say that they definitely seemed like servants that took place in as or that were representative, at least in my experience, as kind of praying mantis like insectoid creatures
Mm.
and weavers, as they would weave kind of energy with their hands, and that energy would then be imbued upon me. I found myself breaking down into a mantra chant, and I would repeat the words, I forgive, I ask for love in my heart. I don't say mantras. That's not part of my normal prayer or makeup or anything. It just started to come out. And, I was whispering. I was still somewhat conscious of where I was. So I didn't want to, make my thing everybody else's thing.
Right.
Um, and so, there was still that humility there. But I broke into a mantra and I started saying this, and I got glimpses of that yellow eye that I saw in the first vision in the form of um, a female figure who was almost like kind of a statue within each of these pillars, holding up this realm. And I had heard about the Jungle Queen, and through some of the interviews that I had listened to, this was again before the days of regular podcasts. These were where you'd have to click on to people's websites to learn more, and maybe they had a kind of radio station. And so I had heard about the Jaguar lady and the Jungle Queen, and she was there, or some sort of female archetype, and that's who the I uh, belonged to. And whatever these mantis-like creatures, insectoid alien type creatures were, they were under her control, and I believe that they were imbuing me with healing energies, for lack of a better term, frequencies. They were weaving kind of a webwork of a pathway for me to heal. And then I got my ass kicked. After that, I had to go to the bathroom, right? Because that was kind of part of my thing. And while doing that, well, that before I get into that, the experience with within the Jaguar ladies realm kind of came up to a crescendo again with this mantra, then eased off, and that was kind of the first wave. And the second wave happened when I started to get like a little bit going on down there, um, and that's when I found myself kind of trapped within a inner sphere of eyes, very much kind of the same color scheme, but I was surrounded and looked at. This is very much like Ezekiel's wheel inverted, where I was in the center and surrounded by wheels, spinning wheels filled with eyes on all ends, and there I was in the middle, finding myself. And what an incredibly humbling journey. I was given intense feelings of grief, sorrow, um, mainly grief, I think, and I didn't recognize the feeling at the time. But you know, I didn't I didn't feel like I was being treated unfairly, right? Uh, like I was like, this is what I need to see, man. So like there was still that semblance of like connection to cerebral thought process. Like, okay, well, this is it. And it got very intense. And Adam was really cool. He just checked in on me and said, "Yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff, man, huh?" It's like, yeah, yeah. It's like just breathing and I rode the wave and came out fine, but that part really took me for a loop, and I realized that there's a lot to unpack for that one, and I certainly, got to work on that along with everything else. It certainly didn't sour my experience in any way, although it was intensely, as one might consider, negative, but it's just information at the end of the day. This is like holding up a cosmic mirror, and
Right.
what you see back is what you need to see. And in many ways, I have used that and integrated that experience in my waking life with a lot of challenge and hardship just in recent years, and it's kind of prepared me for it. So it comes full circle, man. Like I need I need to see that for what was to come in some ways, and it was shown to me in the back then, so I can deal with it now. Not saying I could deal with it right now if I had never gone to Peru, but interesting the way that works.
Any particular process of integration or anything that took place there at the in Peru? Do you know as
Hmm.
part of the experience?
So there was no formal process of integration aside from everybody having breakfast the next day, and kind of at their leisure, sharing their experiences and just getting to know one another a little bit better. And we joke around during the day, and that was kind of it. But it was very casual, and I liked that aspect about it. And I would share whatever I felt something would be of value that somebody else could take away from. I didn't go into all of the details or need to do that, but um as far as to like how how can I take these downloads and these messages bestowed upon me and make them work for my active life, there was nothing, no sort of analyzation of that nature. I
Okay.
think they would have been bold to have been like, okay, well, there's your vision. Here's what you need to do. I don't know.
We had an interesting part of the process where the day after the experience, we would sit with the shaman and we would each tell the shaman through a translator our story and what the experience was, what the visuals were and everything. And then he would sort of chime in on it as necessary to give us some insights, not telling us what to
Hmm.
do as much as like, oh, that symbol represents this or that sort of
Sure.
thing. But it was interesting. So, Chris, here we are, coming up on 3 years from the month that you spent there. Valuable experience, still processing it. Life has changed, more on solid ground. Give us something.
Sure. So, I think about it often. Um, and I'm eager to go back with friends who I think would be receptive to that very spot too. Nowhere else really. It's like it was weird the way it happened. It was like just the right things happened, and I got hired to go out there. I didn't seek this out, and it was kind of the way. And so it just seems like the right place for me. It was the perfect spot. And like I said, I enjoy a bit more of a rustic experience. So I've been thinking about, and I've talked with multiple friends to kind of go down there as a group who I thought would be receptive to this particular location. Um, I think I've integrated a fair amount of of the information that was provided. There's a lot of mystery still out there, incredible fascination. If anything, Dr. Dream, I would say that the entire experience verified uh, visually and energetically what I already knew was out there, deep down, intuitively. I mean, I'm kind of an indigo child gone rogue, but like I've always been able to tap into that, even though I've lived, kind of a troubled youth and then early adult life. It was, it was reaffirming, man. It felt good to kind of, it just, for me, it proved so many of the wildest theories I've heard and some of the wackiest um off kilter. Because again, I said I'm been investigative journalism, and all that stuff leads me to the occult, or off world hidden technology. I know you're very well aware of it, and it's just a fascinating topic. But like, it was for me, it was a peek into how real a lot of that stuff is, and um how dimensional the- is a reaffirmation of dimensions magic, um um powers beyond left brain traditional academic thinking. um it's hard for me to describe, so I'm stumbling over my words a little bit, but it was very reaffirming to me. And yeah, if anything, man, I mean, it's kind of frowned upon in certain communities that are into recovery, maybe. I don't know. I think if anything, it's helped me fairly well with I think shadow work and comes first and foremost. I think you can't just go here and take something or swallow a pill without doing any actual work in order to you know do commit to a required change in order to better your life and that of those around you and how you interact with them. But I think it definitely helped a lot, man. It helped to kind of give. I feel a centeredness in some ways that just kind of comes creeping in occasionally. I don't know if I would feel that if I hadn't had that experience. And again, mainly that comes from knowledge of that was kind of gifted to me, not necessarily like it has this emotional effect that is still lingering in my brain that I'm able to tap to. It's more like, oh yeah, there's a bigger fish to fry out there, isn't there? Let's take a step back, have a nice breath, and you know realize that this is whatever we're dealing with right now is likely small potatoes compared to the grand scheme of things and what the universe or the multiverse has in store for us and what we have to offer it.
That's awesome. I really appreciate you being a guest here on the It's All Good show and sharing the details of your journey. All of our journeys into these realms are unique, yours included, and I, from my perspective, certainly appreciated hearing what it was like for you. I look forward to this project being birthed in one form or another. I hope you keep us updated on that, and we'll update the channel and everything with that information. And I wish you continued success on your personal and professional journey and all that it brings your way. And thank you for reaching out to me. And this has been a lot of fun for me. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the kind words, and I reciprocate them. Glad to be here. I'm very happy that we had a chance to reconnect, and best wishes to you. I'll be following up with the show with more frequency, and again, I appreciate you having me on as a guest. Thanks so much.
Excellent. Thanks, Chris. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.